Yeah.
I mean, you are you, really. I don't see you as an act because
that's good.
You come across as a real person,
Yes.
which is different, isn't it, from the old style?
I suppose so. Yes. I mean, you had to be a sort of like Ken Dodd, wonderful comic, larger than life. And when he started off in the 50s in the musical, playing big sort of theatres that weren't very full of people, you had to be sort of quite large and to get your comedy across. I think I can still remember with great affection jokes that he did on the radio about sort of 40 years ago that made me laugh. Man walks into a shop and somebody says to him, "You're a bit toffee-nosed, aren't you?" He says, "I can't help it. It's toffee on the end of my nose." I remember that when I was about 11 when I heard that. And so it's funny how sort of jokes, sometimes jokes just stick with you.
He was the first comedian I ever saw that made me want to be interested in comedy. I found him so curious, and I still to this day, whenever I meet him or go and see his show, I'm fascinated by his ability. He's really of that old school that he loves it and lives for it, which is tremendous.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he's a working comic. He wants to keep on working, and if you are a comedian, it does make sense to keep sort of working live. That's partly one of the reasons why I do the Comedy Store, just to keep sort of match fit for when you're doing television programs.
What about the fact that comedy kind of comes and goes, certain styles come and go? He's managed to last.
Yes.
I feel some of the comedians today, Russell Brand, who I'm about to do an hour special with, I wonder whether he will still be around in 5 years, able to get away with that free thinking, isn't it? That's his style.
Yes. Well, he seems to be sort of very, very on top of what he's doing, so I should think he probably would be around in 5 years' time. I don't know. I don't know how sort of... Russell's managed to do it in the last couple of years. How you go these days from being sort of like a fairly anonymous comic to being a well-known one, because there's just so many people doing it. Every year when I go to Edinburgh with the improv show that we do, you see a whole bunch of posters up on the wall in the venue, and they're completely new people I've never heard of. And last year there was a whole bunch of completely new people that I hadn't heard of then either, and before that. So there's hundreds of people doing it. So how you ever sort of get spotted or stand out from the crowd, I don't know how you do it. I suppose I have no idea, actually. I just don't know. I mean, when I started off doing I was very lucky when I started off doing stand-up comedy, because the only venue going was the Comedy Store. So when that closed down for about 18 months, and that's when all these other places like Jongleurs and the King's Head and Crouch End opened up as comedy clubs to serve that audience. Was no longer pardon me, there was no longer going to the Comedy Store. So when I started, I was able to phone up Jongleurs and say, well, I've done the Comedy Store. Then I could phone up somewhere else and say I've played Jongleurs. So it was very easy to get bookings, and there weren't many comics around. Often I would be on a bill with maybe a poet, a juggler, a mime artist, a guitarist, and I'd be the only comic on the bill. I mean, those days only lasted about sort of 4 or 5 months, I think.